Okay, it started. Radhe Radhe everyone. Good morning, good evening. Once again, welcome to Bhagavad Gita Satsang. And let's get started with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. वसुदेव सुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Apologies for my voice, it's a little off. I'm recovering from some throat infection, but I think we should be good to go. So today we will discuss this shloka, chapter 6, verse 9. Does anyone want to do the recitation? Or I can try to go just because of my throat. I don't know how smoothly it'll come, but I'll try to do it first. Surin mitra yudasina madhyastha dvesha bandhushu साधुष्वपि च पापेषु समबुद्धिर्विशिष्यते. Anybody wants to go for it? You can raise your hands. It's not as difficult. I like that. Okay, Padishadi, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, I'll try. Okay. Suhrin mitrar yudasina madhyastha dvesha bandhushu sadhushvapi cha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate.
Awesome. Next is Manvita ji. Radhe Radhe. Can you? I have tried to unmute you. Manvita ji? Yeah, Radhe
Yeah.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Suhrin Mitra
Udasina.
Yudasina Madhyastha Dvesha Bandhushu Sadushvapi cha Papeshu Samabuddhir Vishishyate.
Awesome. Thank you. Falguni ji, Radhe Radhe.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Yeah. Suhrin Mitra Udasina Madhyastha Devasya Bandhushu Sadhushvapi cha Papeshu Samabuddhir Vishishyate. Thank you.
Great. So that was Dveshya, not Deveshya, but Dveshya Bandhushu. Awesome. Okay, so with that, we can move forward with the meaning of this shloka. Let's look at word by word meaning. So Suhrit is someone who is a well-wisher. Mitra is friends. Ari is enemies. Udasin is neutral, like you're neither good nor bad, you're neutral. Madhyast is a mediator. Dveshya, like we just said, the end of the first line has Dveshya word, which means being envious. Bandhushu, relatives. Sadhushu, pious. Api, as well. Cha, we know. Papeshu, sinners. Sama buddhi, somebody who has an impartial intellect. And Vishishyate is distinguished. Okay, so let's look at the meaning, literal translation. So first one is from the Song of God by Swami Mukundananda. So that says, the yogis look upon all, whether well-wishers, friends, foes, the pious and the sinners, with an impartial intellect, sama buddhi. The yogi who is of equal intellect towards friends, companion and foe, neutral among enemies and relatives, and unbiased between the righteous and sinful, is considered to be distinguished among humans. So that is really what this shloka is all about. How can we become equanimous towards all living beings? I think the last shloka that we discussed, where I was not present, was about having equanimity amongst all objects, right? And now we are getting to another level, which is about things that respond and act. Objects do not perform any action, right? But all the living beings do perform an action. And how can we develop equanimity towards them? And how that is a very important aspect of us becoming a yogi or attaining God. The other translation from Sadhak Sanjeevani from Gita Press is this: He who regards well-wishers, friends, foes, neutrals, mediators, the hateful, the relatives, saints, and sinners all alike stands out supreme. So, I've heard this many times, like it's easier to be calm, peaceful, happy when you have everything aligned around you, everybody who's behaving well with you. But the real testing times come when there are people who are, pressing your nerves, who can irritate you, who are so-called not so friendly with you. So that's where the test of our equanimous behavior comes into the picture. So let's deep dive into this shloka. So once again, feel free to raise your hand, add anything you want to add or ask anything. It's about we all learning together. Okay. So I just mentioned this in the previous shloka, which was Bhagavad Gita shloka 6.8. We were talking about equanimity, but that was with objects. And now we are talking about living beings. So objects are not associated with actions. I mean, they do not perform any actions by themselves. However, living beings do. And their actions impact themselves as well as others. So hence, bringing equanimity there holds a lot of value. So a person who has a benevolent and impartial attitude to all and regards them alike, even after noticing differences. So that's another important point. Equanimity does not mean that everything is same. Equanimity means that we understand that there are external differences, but even after being aware of that, we try to go a level deeper, looking at the commonality, which is the divinity, and we conduct our actions accordingly. So those are the equanimous people. They have even noticed the differences, but their conduct is standing out, and that is what makes them supreme and or closer to God. Okay. So now we'll dissect. Okay, so this is actually reminded me of a Doha by Kabir, which basically relates to the fact that a person who conducts behavior like this is really indifferent. Anybody has any idea what this Doha is? Like, this is a very popular Doha. Anybody wants to make a guess? If nobody is able to guess, then I can start giving some hints. Like it says like Kabir is standing out in a market, and how is he behaving with people of all kinds? Any idea? No? Nobody? You can also put it in the chat if you wish. If you feel uncomfortable speaking up or anything, so you can also put it in the chat. So I'll just move forward. It says this: Kabira khada bazaar mein mange sabki khair, na kahu se dosti, na kahu se bair. So you should always think well of everyone, neither become over friendly with anyone nor become hostile with anyone. And that is, so whenever, like when I looked at this shloka, this was the doha that came to my mind, because they relate so well with each other. Okay. So now we will dissect the shloka word by word or sentence by sentence. Okay. So first one is Suhrin Mitrayur Udasina Madhyastha dvesh ya. So I don't know what is this. Okay. Okay. Then so let's try and understand. So all of us perform actions, right? Actions can be good, they can be bad. Now, I mean, of course, good and bad is a very subjective term, but I'm just saying in terms of categorization. Now, you can perform good action without having any intention or motive. That's called like a selfless act for the welfare of someone else, right? And that is what is exactly referred to when we're talking about this word called Surin Bandhu or a Surin friend. It's Surin means disinterested. That means you do not have any intention of getting anything in return, but you are still doing something good to the other person, right? So that is really the true friendship. The kind of friendship we engage in mostly is a transactional friendship where we do something good to our friend, but we are also expecting something good in return, right? So the kind of good actions we do can be categorized into these two. And on a generic level, it is like selfless versus selfish, right? Bad can also be again categorized similarly. You are just wanting to do something bad without having any reason or intention behind it. And the other is like you have intentional evil attitude towards someone and you're being hateful, revengeful, vengeanceful, and that's how you are treating them badly. Third category is being neutral, being indifferent. And we can discuss this, but this is also not the ideal situation. First of all, we can never be neutral because it's very difficult to be in the state of being in action, like mentally as well. But what is it that we can practice? That is mostly like this. Again, kind of neutral, but you're always wishing the welfare of everybody. So suppose you're a mediator between two parties without having any personal interest, you are taking an extra effort to establish welfare of both the parties. So that is somewhat related to this, the Surin, the disinterested friend. You don't have any personal interest, but you are trying to do welfare. So in fact, there is this very popular prayer that I think we do on a regular basis. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschit dukh bhag bhave. So that essentially says this, that every individual is part of the bigger family, right? Vasudev Kutumbakam, and we pray to God for the well-being and welfare of everyone. So that is really the kind of actions we should be engaging in, the kind of thought process we should be engaging in. Okay, Shri Ramya ji has asked a question. Neutral means no action performed. Yeah, I think I am seeing it from that perspective. Like neutral here means like externally and internally you're not participating in this at all. At least that's my perspective around defining these. Okay. So again, the conclusion in this slide is he who has a benevolent and impartial attitude towards his relatives as well as those hostile to him is really a person. And make sure that this point we are noticing that those hostile to him, like, because people who are good to us, being good with them is a very simple thing. People who are not good to us, being good with them or at least neutral with them is something that takes up a lot from our end. And that brings me to another doha from Kabir Das ji, which says, Nindak niyare rakhiye, आंगन कुटी छबाए, बिनु पानी साबुन बिना निर्मल करे सुभाए. So keep your critics close to you. So more important than keeping your well-wishers close to you, it is important to keep some critics closer to you, because they are the ones who will accelerate your process of self-purification. Like it says that without soap and water, your heart will be cleansed if you're keeping a critic close by. And honestly, if you're like taking their feedback seriously and understanding um, what are all faults we carry within ourselves and work upon your growth, so that is really the purpose behind it, and that's how you can get cleansed. Okay. Some more chat. Okay, there's an answer. Being unaffected and in a state of equanimity. Okay. All right, so let's move forward. Um, Sadhu swapi cha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. So far we talked about the different kind of attitudes one can harbor, and we discussed like what is the best attitude for us to practice. Now this line is talking about what are the different kind of people we can come across, right? So sadhu we know are saints, and papeshu are the sinners, the ones who have been committing sins, and samabuddhi is having like a equal intellect, or kind of equivalent intellect towards both kinds of people. Not like, okay, this is a criminal, I'm gonna hate this person, and this is a saint, I'm gonna worship this person. So that is a very extreme attitude, right? So basically no judgment zone. um, um, so an equanimous person, their dealings with saints and sinners is different, but he thinks about the welfare of both of them. So this is again a very important point. It's not like you will go and offer like same thing to both, right? It is like, okay, I'm offering my head, chop it. No, right? So there is something called as being vyavahar kushal. That means you understand the externals in which an individual is operating, and operate accordingly. So if somebody is doing something which is socially wrong, then you're also supposed to acknowledge it and respond accordingly. But within you, we are sorry, within us, we are not supposed to develop any hatred towards any individual, because we understand that what lies within, we are all soul, and soul is a part of super soul, the God. So basically, it's the same divinity which is connecting all of us, which is the common constant thing in all of us. So we need to be able to distinguish between those externals and internals. So, yes, all persons are different manifestations of the same divinity, and as the Lord is a disinterested friend of all beings. So, disinterested, let's remind ourselves, does not mean that you have nothing to do. Disinterested means you are wishing well for them without having any expectation of anything in return. So it's called like a selfless friend. And this was also mentioned in like Bhagavad Gita verse 5.29. So the yogi is also a disinterested friend of all beings. So essentially, becoming yogi, becoming equanimous is like becoming God, and God is like the ideal disinterested friend, or the ideal selfless lover. And that's what we will become like if we start practicing uh, becoming more equanimous. So everything is related, right? It's like we have discussed it earlier, that it's like a pack of noodles. If you pick up one virtue, everything else comes along. Okay. So here Lord Krishna, by using the phrase sadhu swapi cha papeshu, means that if he regards saints and sinners alike, he will regard all people alike, because men are judged by their actions. The Lord also lays emphasis on conduct by declaring whatever a great man does, the same is done by others. And I think we have discussed this earlier also, like when we were talking about why karm yoga over karm sannyas. And there Krishna had said that, majority of the people cannot practice karm sannyas, right? So majority are recommended by Krishna to go for karm yoga. And hence, we also need perfect karm yogis to set up an example for others how to actually do bhakti along with work, right? So whatever a great man does, the same is done by others, and more such examples are needed. So if he regards men who perform virtuous actions and also those who perform evil actions alike, it means that he stands supreme, because it is difficult to have a benign and equanimous attitude for the sinners. Like as we have been discussing all this while, right? People who are hostile to them, people who are pressing our nerves, people who we have judged as being sinners, it is very, very difficult to maintain that inner peace when they are around, and still wish their welfare. So, but that is what is the art of becoming equanimous, art of becoming more like God. Okay. So, more in it. So a person can perform actions, right? An action, as we discussed, can be good, bad, neutral, but they are always changing. Our actions will never be like, especially if we are, bound by Maya, our actions will always be different depending upon whichever guna is dominating us at any given point of time, right? But something which is again constant amongst all of us is the underlying self, our soul, as I again said, which is part of the super soul, which is divine. So that is what is constant. So whenever we are interacting with anyone, developing that sama buddhi is about having that intellect to be able to discriminate between that external and internal. Understand that what external behavior is, it's not constant. Today this person is behaving like this, tomorrow it might be different. It's ever changing, but what is constant is the divinity which is within everyone, and hence we wishing well for everyone has to be constant. Okay, so some more chat. All right, equanimity is called yoga. Equanimous becomes wholly virtuous spontaneously, and he conquers the mortal plane. So basically, we are referring to other shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, which have talked about equanimity. So equanimity is equal to yoga. Someone who can be equanimous has become a yogi. And it also, once you are a yogi, you have attained all the virtues, all the godly virtues, right? So basically, being equanimous, being a yogi, or being God realized, in some sense, they are all equivalent, because it's not like you can get one thing and not the other thing. As we discussed, it's like a pack of noodles. If you can attain this, you have already attained the ultimate. So in Vishnu Puran, Prahlad has said that equanimity is God's adoration. And we can attain such a significant equanimity by being free from evil. So as I've been mentioning, right, the biggest thing is to be not harbor any negative feelings for anyone, even after whatever behavior they are conducting with us, right? And that's where comes these 6 rules to be away from evil or to be free from evil, which are very practically applicable rules that we can try and remind ourselves on a daily basis. And that will actually take us closer to becoming virtuous and realize God. So what are the 6 rules? Do not regard anyone as evil. So if we always keep it at the back of our mind that everybody is part of the same divine, and everybody is pure in their true sense, then we will not consider anyone as evil. We will be able to distinguish between their externals and their true self. Do not do any harm to anyone, right? So once we understand that God is residing in everyone, why will we do harm to anybody? Do not think ill of anyone. Do not perceive evil in others. So that's like first and fourth are very similar, right? Do not hear the evil of others and do not speak evil of anyone, right? So whenever we are conducting any action, just ask this question to the self. Is it involving any ill or evil thoughts or around anybody? And action also means thoughts, action also means hearing. If we are hearing anything which is bad about someone, that also falls in the same category, right? And I hope this is also reminding you of like something very popular that we have been looking at since our childhood, Gandhi ji ke teen bandar. So I'll bring that also. So yeah, so don't. So actually, originally I think there were 3, and then we have like one more added, like about thinking, because that's very, very important. We can't be like, okay, I haven't heard anything, I haven't spoken anything, I haven't done anything. But karma is related to what we think also, right? So it's very important to not think evil um, about anyone at any point of time. And that also relates to this, right? Who is our closest, most private buddy? Krishna, right? And if we are thinking something, he is aware of it, whether or not anyone else is. So you want to, what side of you is there that you can hide from him? Nothing, right? So basically, um, let's not think bad about anyone. Let's not hear bad. Let's not see bad. Let's not speak bad. So all these 6 rules, if we try and apply on a daily basis, we will become more virtuous, because that is really our true nature, being part of the divine. That is what we truly are. We have just added these extra layers which needs to be shed off, right? And for that, we can practice these simple things. Okay. So we need to root out the evils, and that is what will take us closer to freedom and liberation. So again, coming back to a person who can perform actions. Now, actions, so there are two attitudes around it. Okay, one thing is to like, okay, fine, I'll just do good things. I'll become spiritually disciplined, and I'll focus on becoming virtuous. Like, okay, there are qualities, virtuous qualities that we can try to, like, okay, waking up early, talking sweetly with others. So that is one aspect of it. But is that good enough? Not really, because that can lead to pride of being virtuous. We have talked about this. If when we become sattvic, one thing that is the last to go is the ego. Ego is the first thing to come and the last one to go, right? So if we are simply focusing on becoming virtuous, acquiring good qualities, then also we can develop the pride of being virtuous. And that is where renouncing the evil in simultaneously while practicing good virtues is very, very important. And that's where it's also, I think, in my understanding, it's also relatable to kusang, right? So it's not just about being in satsang, it's also about avoiding kusang. Because it's like you're trying to clean yourself, then you dirty yourself. So it's like a cycle, otherwise you will be revolving in. So one needs to renounce the evil in order to rise above the pride also of being virtuous. So we have also discussed this, like when we talk about principles of surrender, we talk about this, right? Like pride of having surrendered also needs to go away. So ego, pride, these are bigger things which come with practicing goodness. And that can only go away with the grace of God. But from our level, we should try to renounce evil thoughts and actions as well. Okay. So that's what I think this is talking about. When evil are rooted out, we become virtuous spontaneously. And when we become virtuous, we automatically do good to others. So those are related, right? And by doing so, all the world provides us the necessities of life. So this is important, right? It's not like we have to seek for the basics like oxygen for us to breathe, water for us to drink, right? God has arranged the world in such a way that the basics is always provided. It's just that we end up overlooking at that and getting indulged more in stupid temporary stuff which doesn't really matter a lot, right? So that's where if we start becoming virtuous, if we start rooting out the evils, we will be able to see that we already have whatever is necessary for us to survive and do bhakti. We already have all of that, and we will start counting our blessings and becoming more grateful. So as we said, right, it's all a pack of noodles. It all comes along together. And so we will seize our dependence on the world, and this freedom from dependence on the world enables us to attain equanimity, which is axiomatic, and then we have nothing to do. We become liberated souls. So basically, this is showing you the logic of going from normal, materially bound individual who gets affected by externals to becoming a liberated soul. Okay. This is something I briefly touched, but this is we need to like little bit more discussion is required, that equanimity is not equal to inequality. That means being equanimous does not mean that you treat everybody the same way externally, more importantly, right? As I said, that Vyavahar Kushal is important. Like so God is equanimous, but the world is uneven. That means the different externals, like there are people who will conduct bad actions in the world, and there are people who will conduct good actions in the world. So from our perspective, of course, we need to see the underlying divinity, but externally, we are supposed to acknowledge what is not acceptable, what is acceptable, and accordingly respond, right? So, so an enlightened karma yogi remains equanimous, even having different dealings with different persons. So this is important. You deal differently with different people, understanding the underlying divinity in everyone, and that is what is equanimity. So equanimity is not treating people equally. It is about having that equal vision of the underlying commonality. Okay. So he regards a clod, a stone, a piece of gold, a well-wisher, a friend, an enemy, a neutral, a mediator, the hateful, a saint, and a sinner alike. So though the dealings with them can neither be the same or nor should be the same. They cannot be the same, in fact, right? So when we are talking to um, a criminal, or when we are interacting with a criminal versus when we are interacting with a priest in a temple, we cannot behave the same way with both of them, right? We need to be more careful when we are dealing with somebody who can harm us, right? So, but that is what it means, like vyavahar kushal. But that doesn't mean that we are wishing bad or ill for anybody, right? Even for the criminal, at the end of the day, we want them to get uplifted, become a better version of themselves, and get closer to God. So that pray should be common for everybody, right? And and a person who's equanimous, he has realized that there's nothing else besides God. So it's just that my God has chosen to come in this form with me right now, and I will interact accordingly. But it is the same entity who is interacting with me in different ways. Okay, I think I saw a hand raised by Jyoti ji. Do you still have something to say? Should I unmute you? Wait. Jyoti ji.
Hello.
Jyoti, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you for this amazing discussion. I had a question, but it got sorted out with an example which you gave recently of a priest and a criminal. So, all good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward. So, I mean, I don't think this is like this is a question remaining in our head anymore. That is the underlying essence the same. But this was another set of examples that will, I think, strengthen this point. Is like, look at this. These are two statues. One is of a dog and the other is of Lord Vishnu. So anybody wants to say, like, how would you perceive these two when they both come in front of you? Anyone? Anything? It's like there is no right or wrong. Okay, so just let's interact.
With love.
With love. Okay, beautiful. Anyone else? So Pradushadi said that she is going to feel love for both of them. So that's like very deep. Anyone else who wants to say, like, how would you perceive these two? Yeah, Jyoti. Yes, Radhe Radhe, go ahead.
Trust.
Trust. Okay, so that's the commonality that you see between the two. That's nice, very nice. Falguni ji.
Yeah, I because I have still not been able to purify myself so much, or I'm still not reached that stage where I see divinity in everyone. I'm talking about myself, okay? For me, when I see a dog and uh, the statue of Lord Vishnu, probably I will just fold, I mean, just fold my hands before Lord Vishnu and just see the dog as a dog, because I have still not been able to I've not reached that stage as yet. Probably many years down the lane, probably, but not at this stage. I'm just echoing my true feelings. Thank you.
Very nice, very honest. Thank you so much. And I also see something coming in the chat. Let me see. Loyalty as an attribute. Okay, so that trust that Jyoti mentioned, and Maheshi is saying loyalty. Kumarji, love, devotion to God, love to dogs. Okay, so that's also again a similar thing that's coming from Patushadi and Kumarji. Manvita ji.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, dog is a part of God energy, and Vishnu is God himself. So that's how I see. But as the participant also was saying, like this is the way I see it now. But usually when I look at dogs, I'm fear. I have fear about dogs, but I have that. I know that okay, it's part of God energy, but still that in practicality, it is not that you know. I'm not much conscious about it. But yeah.
Awesome. So, okay, so I think we already have like so many elevated souls here. So we had a good discussion. Like very basic, like materialistic point of view of observing these two is like, they are both statues, but they are both representative of two different entities whom normally we perceive differently, like as we discussed, right? But materially also, both of them, like if you melt them, right, this shape, the outer form will go away, and they are both gold, they are both metals, right? So then you will not be able to even distinguish them. So that is the other aspect of it. Like underlying thing is the same energy in all of us. It's just the external form that differs, which we think as so much real, and we forget that that form is very temporary. Like again, the same point is coming here. So you see the same person who is wearing like bad, like shabby clothes, like torn clothes when he is under a financial crisis, and the same guy is wearing like very nice gentleman clothes when he is not under a financial crisis. So what has changed is the external appearance, but the internal guy is really the same, right? So that's the point. We forget that these external stuff is temporary and it is ever changing. It's not constant. What is the common thing which is constant is the divinity which is amongst everyone, in every atom for that matter, right? So that is what we need to always try and remember, especially when we are harboring any feelings for any individual, and more careful when we are developing any negative feelings towards any individual due to their external behavior towards us or towards anyone for that matter. Okay. So I think, so again, this is just the concluding statement from here. All beings are the manifestations of God, but outwardly they appear different because of difference in bodies and their nature. In fact, in spite of their different appearances, they are the manifestations of God. But it is because of our attachment and aversion that they appear different. So it is us who have attachment or hankering towards so-called good looks, good clothes, right? And that's why we tend to like the association of someone who's kind of well dressed, not having any shabby clothes versus someone who's having, right? So it is our lens through which we see the differences. In essence, there are no differences. Okay, so with that, I think I come to the end of this shloka discussion, and I can stop sharing and we can see whatever discussion we can have. What is time? I don't. Okay, we have 20 more minutes. So, and I don't think Nitin ji has joined yet. So, anything else anybody wants to add, discuss, or share? What are the practical difficulties you face when you try to like personally for me? This is a problem that I do face, that I end up getting irritated under certain circumstances or under the when I'm associated with few people. So, as I said, like get on my nerves, right? So this is something I understand about myself, but uh, practicing this, that it's the same entity which is driving every individual, is really helpful. Work in progress. I am work in progress. If anyone else can also share their personal experiences around it. Saji ji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe, Radhe. So this, we experience this everywhere, right? Um, when we work, when we go to office, um, the one thing that you mentioned is every, uh, w- behaving differently with everyone. That's very, very important. Even though you try to, in the back of your mind, try to see that, okay, people are one, etc. Dealing with different people in different ways, knowing what tools to use, right? For example, anger is an emotion. Anger is also a tool, right? When you are working with people, for example, sometimes it is people in your team, sometimes it is people that are working alongside you, etc. And you see unethical behavior or things that are not going in the way that it should, you cannot be very soft. I mean, ideally, if you can be soft spoken, it won't make an impact, right? So but anger, it is used as a tool, and you make sure that internally, you at the end of whatever, right, you will have a session with people where you're going to be strict, or you're going to be firm and say that, hey, you have not done this, you have not done this. But at the end of that, if you are at peace with yourself, that's the most important thing. Because if anger is something that can burn you. It can it is if you don't treat it as a tool, it has effects that can be very harmful for you. Because if you're truly angry within yourself, your body reacts in a particular way, it releases certain chemicals, you will be at it will be bad for you. So going about in a long-winded way, essentially, use things as a tool, and try not to have negative emotions. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, very well said. And in fact, this is what, in fact, like earlier when we were discussing in Bhagavad Gita only, that what is the origin of anger, like kamat, krodhat, abhijayate, right? So basically, it's all our attachments. And so that's when also we discussed this, that it is important to display anger, but being angry is never needed. So internally, we need not be angry at any point of time. But yes, under certain situations, we have the authority. I mean, we should be able to exercise display of anger. Like, for example, as a parent, right? Like we have, in order to keep children's under check. So it's absolutely our external actions should be aligned in a way that we are not encouraging anything wrong. We are always maintaining the peace and harmony in the society around us through our actions, right? But always ensuring that internally we are not developing any negative feelings towards anyone, as you also mentioned. Okay, so Manvita ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. So on the same lines, actually, even I had some reflection. So in the workplace or anywhere, like where we have some bitter feelings for someone, like any interactions which led to that bitterness, and we associate a negative label to them, that whatever they speak or their actions, we very easily try to see through that label, that what they are doing is because of this, they are trying to give hard time or something like that. We don't like, their intentions might be anything, they might not be any intentional, but with that repeated experiences, we tend to not see them as clearly as we should, and we don't encourage that deeper contemplation as well, we just go with that label. So that uh, when I had such experience, I reflected that, okay, let me see, like anything that happens to us is like a learning that God is trying to give us. If he is putting us into such situations, then maybe there is something that we need to learn from it. So I felt like maybe I have to see God in them, so that if they are speaking in that way, then maybe God in them is trying to speak to me in that way, and maybe it's God's opinion. So if I think like God within that person is trying to tell it, then I have a bandwidth of hearing to it. If not, I might not. I will rule it out. So I had that reflection that, okay, let me think in that perspective, so that I can have a discussion or some thinking in mind, that okay, these are the points, and I can have these points, and I can have a conversation instead of ruling it out by thinking that this is not good for me, or I don't want to hear to them. So that
That's
is
wonderful point. Like actually that's really important that we always keep the growth mindset at the back of our head, right? That anything and everything that's happening with us around us is being arranged by God for our spiritual growth. And if we keep that as a back of our mind, we will start perceiving everything as an enabler of that. So even I think this Nindak Niyare Rakhiye is something that a person with the right attitude can actually understand that meaning and implement that well. So that's important. So thank you. Pratusha Di, why? Yes.
Radhe Radhe. Yeah. Actually, I have two accounts right now. Something happened. I don't know. I got logged out. So yeah, yeah. I just wanted to share something about this dog and the God thing. So we all love God, right? So I have had like these experiences with dogs a lot. I really love them. So what happened was once like somewhere I went and I this dog, I saw it and it came to me. Okay, so I gave it some food. Later on, I came to know that everybody's afraid of that particular dog because he was like a rowdy. He had a gang and all of that. So I had I don't have any particular affinity for some dogs or something. I like everyone. So in near my house there was one dog who used to be afraid of everyone, and I will always give it food. Whenever I find it around, I will give it food. So I saw these bunch of dogs coming, and they want to mark their territories, right? So they come in bunch and they terrorize these other dogs. So they happen to find out the small one, and I just didn't care. On that day, I went and I stood between the smaller dog and these group of like 12, 15 dogs, and and the only confidence I had was I recognized that dog to which I gave the food, and he was the leader. And I remember, that dog just freezing in front of me, and it was the others wanted to hurt the smaller one, but uh, it signaled no, and then they all turned and went away. And uh, so that was one occasion there where I tried to protect. I don't know, maybe God saved me.
Inspired. Hmm.
Yeah. But then another incident when I was going for a morning walk, suddenly a black dog came and started, barking, and it just came at me to bite me. And I was ready to fight. I was like, okay, if he bites, I'm for sure not going to give away like that. I'm gonna give at least two, three kicks. So that's how, you should be ready. You should not have any bias within you towards anything because it is looking like a dog or anything. You just whatever comes in however way it comes, you look at it and do the needful. That's how your attitude should be. Don't become afraid of anything. If we have that, then try to overcome that, because it is some tendency that we have, maybe from our past experiences or something. Just try to modify it in some way and get over it, and try to see, that yeah, they are like that, but they did not choose to be like that, right?
Right. Very true. And in fact, for me personally, I used to be like really, really scared of dogs, But then I think this was Bhagavad Gita Shlok 5.26 or something, where it was like treat dog eater, dog, everyone alike, right? Equal vision. So I think that had hit me a little strong, and I was like, I have to work upon myself with respect to this because I know it's the same divinity which is acting through all of them, right? So at least, if not developing this sense of love is maybe another level, but at least not feel scared or not always have that aversion. I tried to work upon that, and at least that has become better now. So like now I am comfortable with them being around me, and unless I think they start howling and all that, that can make me a little scared still. But it's getting better. So I'm sure like this knowledge, when we try to implement on a daily basis, it makes our life much more beautiful and easier to navigate with the right perspective. Yes, Falguni ji.
Yeah, I just wanted to share one small example. I mean, just something which I read some time ago. So it's like it's true that we have to treat. I mean, we must try and treat everybody with equanimity. But at the same time, we also have to protect ourselves against, because there will be people who will take advantage of us and so on. So we have to also protect ourselves, and at the same time, like develop an equanimity towards all and see divinity in them. So Ramakrishna has given this Sri Ramakrishna has given this very beautiful example, which I think everybody must be aware of, the snake which is hissing. Okay,
Yeah,
so I
I was
don't need to
about to
repeat
say
it.
that story. Right, right. No, but
Yeah.
I think if you can say that quickly, like, because
Yeah,
I was
quickly,
about
I'll
to
just
say,
share that example. So there
yeah,
was this snake who used to bite children, and very, very, very angry one, and so on. So that one sadhu one monk was passing through that village, and he was going through that road. So they said that no, no, you don't go through this particular path, because there is this snake staying, well, I mean, living there, and he is very, very dangerous, and so on. So the sadhu went there, passed, of course, went through, I mean, went uh, there, and he said, no, let me just see what it is. So he went there, and he then talked to the snake, and he said, look, I'm giving you a mantra to be able to, so that will calm you down and help you, and so on. You have to just repeat this mantra every day. So the snake started repeating the mantra, and he was like, after a few years and so on, the sadhu came back, and the sadhu said that you repeat this mantra and you will be like free of everything, and you'll be enlightened, and so on. So like after a few years, the sadhu again came back to the return to that village, and he said, he asked the people there that what happened to that snake. Oh, it must have died, and so on. We haven't seen him for a long time. Like the sadhu said, no, it cannot be possible. He cannot die. I will go and see where he is. So of course he went to that small place where he was living, and then he saw the snake there. Then he said, what happened? He was like all broken in places, and like almost like a skeleton, very weak, could hardly crawl, and so on. So said that, what happened to you? So he said, no, you gave me the mantra and so on. So I was just chanting, and then these small children would come and beat me up, and so on. And there was this one particular boy who was very naughty, and he just like, got hold of my tail and, turned me around and then threw me, and I like, that's how some of my bones are broken, and so on. So then sadhu said, no, you don't have to bite, but you have to at least hiss and, like, protect yourself. So the whole thing is that, yeah, there will be bad people, so you have to hiss and protect yourself, but at the same time, like, not you know be very,
harbor any ill feelings towards anyone.
yeah, harbor ill feelings towards them. Yeah. And the other thing is what Sajiji said was very true, that you can use your anger, these things very constructively. Yeah, but one has to know or learn probably the ways and means of how to do it appropriately, because then that should not result into, like, something not very, yeah. So that's it. Yeah, thank you, Radhe.
Right. I think practical living, in terms of like being Vyavahar Kushalta, is an art that we all like gradually master depending upon what kind of experiences we have gained. But definitely, one thing that we can always try to keep at the back of our mind is to understand that the commonality is there. So we are not going to harbor any negative feelings for anybody internally. And that is the most empowering thing for our own selves, because that will purify us and that will take us closer to God at a very, very fast rate. But definitely, how to externally behave is something we have to be mindful about. And it's an art that we need to, I think, become better and better with, based upon our practical experiences. Awesome. And this snake story is very, very nice that way, actually. It's important to hiss. And more than that, it's actually our duty to hiss that way. We can't be like, okay, I'm just doing my chanting and let everything be. Because we are not at that level. We are not surrendered. surrender is a very, very big thing, which is it comes with, I don't know how it comes because I am not, but I know at least it's very far that way. So we need to uh, perform all our duties with the best awareness and the right attitude. Okay, so I think it's already 9:58. Pratusha, the closing notes, and then we will close. Yes, Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radha, I was just thinking about this candle and moth thing. Like, moth is always circling around the candle, not knowing, the danger that it could be in. But then I think, what is it seeing, that
Right?
it is ready to give its life for it, or it just goes, right? So maybe kind of that kind of an attitude, what we have to see, do it, at least when we are surrendering to the process, whatever it is, that things are happening, good or bad, for a greater reason. The reason we right now we don't know, and then go with the flow. Don't think too much about it, and just go with the flow. And probably that is how surrender happens. No, okay. If it is not according to my will, definitely someone else is doing it for me, and I need to know that lesson.
Actually, I got reminded of this, like even Yashoda Maiya, when she was dealing with naughty Krishna, she was doing whatever was necessary to keep him under check. She was not like, oh my God, you're God, and I am like just going to pray you all the time, right? So even she was being Vyavahar Kushal, even
Mm.
after knowing that he's the God, right? And you need to forget that he's God, forget that Aishwarya Bhav in order to love. So I
Right.
think that I feel is a very good example for us to learn that even with God, the behavior is always Vyavahar Kushal. Externally, he is a child, and you will behave with him the way you're supposed to behave with your child. So
Mm.
similarly, whoever we interact with, we need to understand what is the relation, what is the societal equation, and accordingly respond. But internally, of course, have that consciousness, which is very uplifting.
It's very clear to clear that Bhagwan is saying, na, have bhav with me, right? So you cannot have bhav if they were like thinking, oh my God.
Aishwarya, right, absolutely perfect. Okay, so that brings us to the end of it. Thank you all for joining. And see you all next Saturday for the continuation of Srimad Bhagavatam Satsang, and then next Sunday for the next shloka in the Bhagavad Gita Satsang series. So Radhe Radhe, have a good day and good night. Bye bye.